Hello everybody! Tonight you are going to learn about sponges, the little creatures that live in the bottom of the ocean, and no, their name is not SpongeBob. Alright, for each time we do this, we're going to go through the classification system of them. So we all know that we're studying the animal kingdom, so every single time we see this, we're going to see kingdom Animalia. What's going to be different for each one is this one right here, the phylum. We are going through the different animal phyla, and underneath phylum is class. Now some, depending on the type of animal, will have lots of classes here or just a couple of classes. It all depends. So the kingdom phylum has lots of different classes in it. We're going to talk about what it means to fit under each of these. So class, this one is called Demospongii. So if you break it up into groups, demo, sponge, and then the I sounds like an E and the AE sounds like an I, spongii. And these are things called horn sponges. The next one we have class Calcara. That sounds like a K. Calcara, which are the calcareous sponges, which means that they have lots of calcium in them. And then we have class, and this one's fun to say, Hex, Act, N, L, I, D, or die. Like that. Hexactinellidae. So if you break it up into individual syllables, it's not too bad. Hexactinellidae. These are the glass sponges. They're actually very fragile. Seem like they're made out of spun glass. And the last one, which is Sclerospongii. These are what we typically think of when we think of sponges, which are coral and tropical reef sponges. So what does it mean to be a sponge? What do you have to have or not have in order to fit into this phylum? Now the word porifera in Latin translates to pore bearers, or the bearer of many pores. And sponges are multicellular, of course, because they're animals. Heterotrophic, again, of course, because they're animals. They have no cells, because they're animals. But they have very few specialized cells. As we move on into the different animal phyla, we'll see that they start to develop more and more specialized cells. Sponges are covered in pores, duh, because that's where their name comes from. So all these little holes right here, these are all pores. And this is where water actually flows out of. And sponges are sessile, this word right here. Sessile means that they're stuck to the ground. So this little thing right here kind of glues them down to the ground so they don't go floating all over the ocean. Alright, their body plan. They are asymmetrical, which means that there is no symmetry. They grow kind of like plants. There's no front, back, no left or right. There is a top and the bottom because the bottom is glued to the ocean floor, but there is no head or anything like that. The body wall is made out of two layers surrounding a large central cavity. So it's kind of like, I'm going to use my raspberry example again, kind of like this. So there's a layer of cells here, a layer of cells here, then here's the middle portion, and then this is a hollow internal cavity. Inside of the body wall, we find these specialized cells called choanocytes. Choano means collar, and so if you look at this, it kind of looks like a little collar, like, on your shirt. And so cyte, whoopsie, what'd I do? Wrong button, there we go. The choanocytes are otherwise known as you can't see that. Let me try this again. Otherwise known as collar cells due to the fact of this little collar right here. So choanocytes, what they are specialized cells that have flagella, and they're located right in here, kind of like this, with a little whip sticking out. And what they do is they help to move water through the sponge. This is their circulation. So they wiggle this little flagella back and forth, and that helps to move water throughout. Water enters through the pores. I think I drew it backwards on the other one. Enters through the pores and comes out the top here, called the osculum. Osculum is Latin for big hole. And so at the top here, that's the osculum. So I'll show you a picture to kind of help explain this a little bit more. Turn the page. Turn the page. I guess there isn't a picture. Okay, we'll come back to it. Okay, and now my pen's not working at all. Come on now. There we go. Oh, yep, there is a picture. Yay. Okay. So here is a cross section of a sponge, and so what we see, and I think if I draw on this, it's going to play something. So I'm just going to draw it over here on the side. So here's what we're seeing here is the outer portion of the body wall, and on the outside you can see that there's specialized cells, these kind of greenish ones here. Okay, and that's just part of the epidermis. So the epidermis just means the cells on the outside. On the inside, we have the blue ones, which don't really have a name in this particular case. It's just epidermis on the inside. And then in between the blue ones, we have our little collar cells. And so if you notice that they all kind of point inwards like that. The osculum is a big hole at the top here. There are smaller holes, if you can see, like in between here. That's where the water flows in, like this. And we also have some extra special things. We have these blue spiky things. These are called spicules. Where's the word? There it is, spicule right there. We'll get into that in just a minute. And then there are these white cells, these ones right here, which are called either archaeocyte, which means old cell, or amoebocyte, which means amoeba-like cell. And then in between, this yellow is the glue that holds it all together, which is called mesohyl or mesenchyme. Either way, it's still the same structure. It's just goo. It's tissue fluid that kind of holds it together. So this is our basic structure of a sponge. Now, sponges are more complicated than that, but this is pretty much all we need to know. This right down here, this is a spicule from the class Hexactinellidae, and you can tell because it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spikes that the name comes from the spicules. Okay, next up we have their body plan. The movement of water going through their body. So remember we said it's kind of like this. Water goes in here and out the top. So as water goes through, it brings with it food. So there's little particles of food. So they bring in and the food gets trapped inside of their body tissues. They have spicules, which were those little pointy things, and they come in all sorts of different shapes, like this, single or tri, like that. Spikes in the body wall are made of either calcium carbonate, which is the same stuff that seashells are made out of, or silica, which is the same stuff that glass is made out of, and this acts as a skeleton for them. It just kind of helps give their body some shape and support. Besides having spicules, they also have something called spongin, which is where the name sponge comes from, are these fibers right here that are what's left behind when the tissues of the animal die. And it allows them to be very flexible, and it's found in the mesohyl as well. So when you have a natural sponge, you are looking at the spongin left over from the original animal. Now, most of the time we deal with synthetic sponges, not real ones, but you can buy the real sponges. They're kind of expensive. That's because they're waiting for the animal to die, and then they take the spongin from there. So if you're using a real body sponge, you're basically rubbing the dead skeleton of an animal all over your body. Ain't that nice? Also, inside of the body tissues, in between here, we have those archaeocytes or amoebocytes, and these are cells that have the ability to move around. So they migrate. They can start out over here, kind of crawl all around over here, and they do lots of different jobs. They actually help to move food around the body. They also grab eggs and sperm and hook them up together. So they're kind of like little matchmakers. So here's that picture again. All right, how do they feed themselves? Well, they are filter feeders, just like SpongeBob said. They take in the food from outside, bring it in through the pores, and then some of it gets trapped in here in the mesohyl, and then the collar cells can also take some of the food as well, and they spit out the leftovers and it goes out the top. The digestion takes place inside the cells themselves. So if here's a cell, kind of like lysosomes digesting a meal, the food particles will be digested inside of the cell. So it's called intracellular digestion. The choanocytes, right here, here's a little collar part like that. They will also trap and engulf the food particles, and they'll give it to an amoebocyte, this blue guy right here. So the food kind of comes in here, they give it to him, and then the amoebocyte will then take off and go deliver it to whichever cell needs it. So he's kind of like our blood, in the fact that our blood delivers food to the rest of our body. The amoebocytes deliver food to the rest of the sponge's body. Once the food is digested, it gets passed on to the archaeocytes, which transport the nutrients throughout the sponges, like I just said. Respiration, circulation, and excretion all are carried out by the same process of water moving into the sponge and out like that. So as water passes through, dissolved oxygen goes into the cells by diffusion, and so that takes care of the respiration part. Carbon dioxide comes out, that's the excretion part, and just the water moving throughout takes care of the circulation part. For a response, they have no nervous system whatsoever. So you can't touch them and they feel that. They can't respond. So the only thing that they can do is they produce toxins, toxic, I thought I was going to do that again. Toxic chemicals that help to dissuade animals from eating it, but also remember they have all those little shiny spicules that are sharp and pointy, and that also keeps things away from wanting to eat it. Now looking at how they reproduce, it's kind of interesting. They can produce sexually or asexually. If it's sexually, what they'll do is produce sperm by one sponge. So here's sperm getting shot out of a sponge here, and then it'll float through the water. A female sponge will suck in the water, and then the eggs are carried in, and then the eggs get distributed, get picked up by an archaeocyte. So the archaeocyte, the eggs are floating around inside here, so the archaeocyte will pick up the sperm and deliver it to the egg where fertilization then occurs. Since sponges don't have the ability to move, this is the only way that they can actually reproduce. This, if they were to do this all the time, the chances of sperm and eggs running into each other would be really slim. So what they do is they coordinate that once a month, usually on a full moon, everybody spits out eggs and sperm, and what that does, it increases the chances that they'll run into each other. We refer to this as internal fertilization because it does occur inside of the sponge itself, even though there's no connection between the male and female aspects of the sponge. Once the egg gets fertilized, it turns into a motile, meaning movable, larva, has little cilia that grows all over it, and that allows him to swim around. And then once he swims around, he finds a little happy spot on the bottom of the ocean where he kind of glues himself down, and then he's going to grow and turn into an adult sponge. So here's a little picture showing what he does. So this little guy is kind of what it looks like. It's not the same thing, but it's close. If they reproduce asexually, they do something called budding, which is basically they take a part of themselves and grow a little chunk off of it. That chunk falls off, and lo and behold, turns into a brand new sponge. So part of the parent breaks off and settles to the ocean floor, and that becomes a new sponge. But in conditions where, say there's an oil spill or something like that, that might kill all the sponges, what they'll do is produce these little things called gimmules. Gimmules, or gemmules, depending on how you say it, are little balls of archaeocytes that are surrounded by spicules. All these little things sticking out, those are all spicules. And what it does is it preserves the middle inner layer. And what they do is they just kind of chill until the bad conditions are gone. And then once they're gone, it pops open and ta-da, there you go, you got a new sponge. So in cases where the water isn't ideal, they'll just kind of hang out in a state of suspended animation until the water's good enough for them to grow again. Ecology of sponges, what are they there for? Well, one thing is they provide habitats for thousands and thousands of different species of animals. Some of them are just like big and spongy like this, and so they produce homes for algae, a certain type of green algae, and then the sponges can use the food produced from the algae, so they kind of live symbiotically with each other there. Fish can live inside, especially the big ones that are hollow. They can very easily fit a fish inside. And of course, don't forget they produce bath sponges for us. Except for that guy is not a real sponge. That is actually a loofah, which is a plant. This is the fruit left over from a plant that we now use as sponges. Alrighty, so we will learn more about sponges tomorrow and when we discuss the notes. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.